And one. Hello, welcome to Jenkins Documentation Office Hours. Today is April 3rd, and around the table we have myself, Kevin Martins, Birji, Meg, Pratik, and I've got Mark listed here. If he does show up, we'll make sure to welcome him in with open arms as always, but for now, we'll go over the agenda and get started. So for today, I've got the contributor spotlight. We've got the latest version of that published. We'll just touch base real quickly on the developer experience here with Meg. Rehash a little bit of the documentation fixes implemented recently. I want to make sure that everyone's aware of the community awards once again. New blog post from Jan Farachik. Just some notes on Google Summer of Code. Again, we've been discussing the Chinese documentation site. We'll hit that again. Recent LTS releases and security releases. Some recent work that's been done on Jenkins.io. And depending on time, we'll touch on the recent topics that we've been keeping discussion happening for. And there's Mark. Welcome, Mark. How are you doing?
Hey,
going over the agenda. Is there anything that you want to make sure we go over today, Mark, as we go through it?
I haven't looked at the agenda, but I assume, you've got Google Summer of Code. Good. I assume you've got Blue Ocean is somewhere on the list. Yeah, then I don't have anything additional to add. Let's do the agenda.
Sounds good. So first up, the contributor spotlight. Again, we just published the most recent one for Yaroslav Afenkin. For anyone unaware, Yaroslav was at one point in time a member of the Jenkins security team working in the project a few years ago. Since has left the project proper like that, but came back for the CSP project at the end of last year. So Yaroslav and was joined by Shlomo Dahan to work on the CSP project. So that was really great. So it's nice that we get to feature Yaroslav and share his story there. Recently, I've also done interviews with Sasha Laburi, who was part of CloudBees and has been supporting Jenkins for quite some time. I'm downplaying that a little bit, but you'll find out more when the spotlight comes out. And Ilan Rabinovich, who's committee chairperson for Scale, out in, otherwise known as the Southern California Linux Expo, who's provided spots for Jenkins over the years. So really great to connect with them and really excited to share their stories once they're published. And just a note on that. So last year we were publishing about 2 spotlights a month. We've scaled it back a little bit just to give ourselves some time to let those stories breathe and get the views and highlights that they deserve. And so that we don't burn ourselves out on the spotlights themselves. We want to make sure we have plenty of content for plenty of time to come. And Chris has joined, so I just want to make sure I get there. Welcome, Chris. Thanks for joining. Appreciate it. And then on the documentation developer experience, Meg was having some issues with just kind of getting started building Jenkins.io and contributing that. We incorporated the Docker installations instructions into the contributing document. Meg, have you had any issues or any chance to try it out further?
I haven't worked on it much. I got sidetracked working on something else, but no, and I think something must be screwed up in my Ubuntu. I don't know what, but I just realized I have another system around here. I'm going to start over on a whole different system and see what's going on. So
yeah, no worries.
And I'm really going to try to get to that. I get distracted, God, by everything.
Good. Yeah, I'm right there with you. No worries, no rush. I'm here if you need help, if you want to work on it together or anything like that. Mark, I know, has also offered his help.
Well, I ought to be able to. I mean, I've done it before. It's just that I fried the machine that it's installed on. So
and that happens. Yeah, I've had to restart completely a couple times myself, and it's my main focus. So
right. Well, and maybe maybe we should all restart more often so we remember it once you get it set up and use it for years and years, and then boy.
Yeah. So it's building the practice.
Yep.
Cool. All right. Next up, so the documentation fix is implemented. So this is something that's already been taken care of, but Oleg Nanashov, who's been part of Jenkins governance board in the past and contributed to the project, noticed that docs.jenkins.io is being found in Google search results. We don't want that. It's not ready for live production eyes yet. So thanks to Chris added the robots text file that prevents all that from coming up, and it's been resolved thanks to that. So again, thanks to Chris for their work on that. The 2025 Jenkins Community Awards have been announced, and we have issues for each of the awards. Alyssa has wrote up a blog post announcing this and has shared links to each of the awards here in the blog post. The awards are for most valuable Jenkins contributor, most valuable advocate, and security MVP. So nominations are open until April 14th, so we still got some time for that. Mark, what's on your mind?
That was the question. When? Thank you. You covered it. Thank you. I've not missed the opportunity to nominate people. Thanks.
No, as of today, we still have 11 days where that's open for nominations. To make a nomination, just go into the corresponding issue and submit a comment, and we'll go based off responses to the comments here. So the key things here to make sure you're aware of is, of course, nomination period closes on the 14th. The voting will start the week after that on April 22nd and run until June 5th. Winners will be announced at CDCon this year in June. And last year's winners are not eligible for the exact same award that they won last year. So, for instance, last year, Stefan Speaker won Most Valuable Jenkins Contributor. He's not eligible to win that award this year, but if he is nominated for Advocate, he can win that. So, cross-pollination with the categories is okay, and share your nominations when you have the ability and the time to do so. It means a lot. We want to make sure that we honor the people that we view as beacons for the project and make sure that they get recognized as such. So, more to come on that. The blog post is available on jenkins.io. You can always check that out. But yeah, that's something that we've been doing the last couple of years. I'm glad to see we're continuing to do so. And the CDF awards are for the CD Foundation as a whole, but some projects have their own. Jenkins happens to be a project that has their own category of awards. So it's nice that we get to be specific in this.
So Basil and I will be physically present at that June 23rd through 25th announcement in Denver, Colorado, USA.
Very nice. And wasn't sure about who's going to be there. So that's
Sorry, say that again, Meg.
Oh, it's a tough trip for you.
I know it'll take.
I want to see you. We're going to visit to Rome on this, though.
I'll almost require an hour to drive there. I know it's just terribly painful. And yes, I can see that. I should go to Rome in addition to Denver, Colorado. It's
right on the way. Yes.
Absolutely.
Oh, well, I'm glad that you'll be there. And Basil's already been nominated for Most Valuable Contributor, so maybe we can honor him there. Next up, so Redesigning Jenkins is a blog post that was written by Jan Faracek. So Jan is one of the UX SIG leads. He's been working on Jenkins UI for a long while now, along with Tim Jacome and others. And so Jan's written up a blog post kind of going into the background of the project, what their challenges are when it comes to updating the UI, and what kind of work needs to be done to not only create those updates, but also carry it into the future, so that maintaining the project is sustainable, so that there aren't they're trying to also reduce technical debt along the way. And he calls out stuff like removing prototype JS, which was done not necessarily by the UX SIG team, but by Basil. Basil and other developers are working on the prototype JS removal. So this just really is a nice way of showing that the UI is affected not just by the UX SIG and the people that are focused on that, but by the entire community as a whole. So really great call out there. And this is just part one. So Jan's going to come up with another part two that they'll do a deep design into some of the new UI features and what that experience looks like for developers. So really looking forward to more from Jan on this and more to come on the Jenkins UI. Yeah, and like I said, it explains the challenges because there are legacy technologies. Jenkins has been around for over 15 years now, if I'm not mistaken.
20.
So 20 years, yeah, that's right. So Lots of things that are being carried around still. We're looking at updating them. Jan and others are doing a lot of work to do so. So really great to have that. Google Summer of Code 2025. The process has begun. We have now gotten past the date of draft proposal submissions. So, Chris, Alyssa, Bruno, myself, the other mentors have reviewed draft proposals. I think we have until tomorrow to provide feedback and further review for any of the draft proposals. And then the actual deadline is the 8th for proper proposals being submitted. At that time, once we have the proposals, we'll start ranking and reviewing them, and we'll take everything from there as they come. We have the blog post that Alyssa put together announcing Jenkins in GSLOC 2025. But we're at the point now where a lot of progress has been made. There's a lot of activity. We've got over 78, 79 draft proposals submitted alone, which is fantastic. There could honestly be more than that when it comes down to the actual proposal submission. Not everyone was able to get their proposals in for the draft review process. So, unfortunately, that has gone by, but there's still time to get your proposal submitted if you're interested in any of the projects.
Yeah, I'd say it's guaranteed, almost guaranteed that we'll get more proposals, right? The last week before the deadline closes has, in the past anyway, been the most active week for submissions.
Yeah, that's exciting too. I haven't not been part of the process personally the last couple years, so that's good to know. And yeah, I mean, maybe we'll hit 100. Who knows? Yeah, most likely not, but we'll see. But yeah, there's been a lot of activity, a lot of interest in the different projects. There's some AI projects, there's documentation projects, there's development projects, there's all sorts of different topics, which is really great. Um, Specifically related to the documentation, we're looking at retooling the Jenkins.io site to using Atora and Gatsby instead of Awestruct. So lots of interest there, which is really great to see. And then we've also got projects for stuff like revamping the success stories site, among other things. So it's great to see there's so much interest in all these projects, and really great to see that the potential contributors and participants are helping each other, working with each other, communicating. So much Gitter channel activity is just really heartening to see. So thanks to everyone for their work on that and for the continued work that is still to come on that. For the Chinese documentation site, so again, just to kind of revisit this once more, the original plan was to retire it, but we found that there were a non-significant number of installations of the Chinese localization plugin. So instead of retiring it, we're looking at alternatives to see what we can do about making sure that the site is up to date, whether that is translation localization process for it, um, potentially including the Chinese localization in core, and then eventually deprecating the plugin once it's taken shape. Um, but we don't have enough data just yet to determine the direction we're going to take. So some more discovery to come. And once we have an idea of what that'll look like, we'll be able to share that. Mark or Chris, anything else on that before we move on to the next? Okay. So then the next topic, the LTS released 2.492.3 just happened yesterday. The changelog and upgrade guide are both available on Jenkins.io. And something to note here that it was a security release. So thanks to the Jenkins security team for taking care of the release and everything with that, publishing the 2.504 changelog as well. So that's a big deal. Thanks to them. And the security advisory is also here published, and it deals with both Jenkins core and Jenkins plugins. So anything that might be relevant for you, you'll find there. The security releases are always handled by the Jenkins security team. So despite the changelog and upgrade guide being a documentation task, that's something that they publish themselves, which is really helpful. So thanks to them for all their work. Recent work I wanted to make sure we highlighted. So lot of stuff being done lately. Really great to see the contributions coming through. So thanks to Berviento for creating a .NET Jenkins tutorial. I was able to review this, go through the process, make sure that everything works. And just this morning, Berviento was able to transfer the repository to the Jenkins docs repository so that we now have everything within the infra ecosystem, which is great. Really smooth transition and great work there. Bakyom has been providing a lot of updates to the Jenkins documentation, just some fixes, updates, tweaks that need to be happening. So thanks to them for their work there. Kamlesh yesterday, or the day before, I should say, started work on making sure that the Google Summer of Code project ideas table actually was responsive when smaller screens are involved. So at the time, originally, it wasn't, the full table wasn't available on a smaller screen, depending on how small it got. So now it's responsive and it will scroll when the screen is a little smaller than expected. So thanks for that. Jan recently added SIG participation info to author profiles. So you can see here, for instance, on Jan's profile, social links. And then here, he's got the user experience lead signifier. So that's really great. And that's for all the SIG leads, all the SIG participants, even. If we go to mine, you'd see docs. If you go to Bruno's, you'd see the platform, et cetera, et cetera. So that's a nice little thing there that added something small, something just very informative, very nice to have. So thanks to Yana for that. And thanks to Birajit for continued work on the Jenkins.io branch renaming process. So for anyone that's unaware, Birajit's been working on this for a little while now, on renaming the Jenkins.io master branch to main. This is something that we're, as part of the inclusive naming project that's been ongoing. It's constant. We want to make sure that everyone feels included in the project and not excluded in any way, shape, or form. But this kind of change, especially with Jenkins.io, is really, really crucial to the infrastructure and how it works and how it responds in other repositories, GitHub Actions, all sorts of stuff. So it's something that needs to have the time taken to make sure it's done properly and done correctly. And more importantly, that any place that might be affected is addressed accordingly. So he's been doing a lot of work there. He's been great in terms of collaborating and updating things. And Damien was able to connect with us on it earlier today, late yesterday. Damien DePorto from Infra Team, to just indicate where those changes need to be made, how to kind of alleviate some of the work in some areas and just make it a smoother process. Again, this is not something we're taking lightly. And the Infra team, Damien did indicate they might need some time to make sure everything's okay and in order before any kind of merging can be done. So we've got some time to work on it further, address any concerns that might be raised, and just partner with the Infra team to make sure that it is okay and good to go when it is time for it. So no rush there. We'll get it taken care of. And ultimately, if it does get merged and there's any issues or anything that's, enough of a concern that we have to revert it, we'll just revert it. It's not something that can't be redone, again, after the fact. So even if it does go south for one reason or another, it's still something that, eventually needs to happen. So we'll get it done. So thanks to everyone for your work on the project. It's great to see. It's lovely having all these contributors participating, sending in their contributions, gearing up for Google Summer of Code. My focus is documentation, so it's really nice to see people be involved in that way. I know it's not the most flashy or commonly seen sort of thing, but documentation is really important, especially where I've been interacting and connecting with different contributors and supporters of Jenkins. They've, pointed out just how important documentation is, constantly saying it's necessary. It's crucial for people accepting the project and being involved and being interested, because bad documentation, bad presence is not going to make anyone more interested in it. So it's really nice to have all that going on. Next up is the Alpha and Omega documentation project idea. No further information at this point in time. No final decisions have been made. Still waiting to see if there's any change there, but not really planning for it at this time.
Yeah, no, and the Alpha Omega just published their Q1 report.
Oh,
So they published a summary of which projects they funded in Q1 of 2025, and as expected, we're not in it. So I'm not expecting them to fund any additional Jenkins projects yet, but Vadek Follonier, our security officer, is working with them periodically. So it's not all gone. And I'll meet with them at Open Source Summit North America in June in Denver, because they'll be there and I'm attending one of their tracks.
And they've been really supportive. Of course, Alpha Omega is the reason that we had the CSP project at the end of last year. So their collaboration is incredibly appreciated, and their support's always nice to have. So not right now, maybe later. We'll see later. And yeah, like Mark said, Wadek's the security officer. So having him working with them directly is always really nice and is good to keep the relationship alive and going. So great. The plugin developer documentation topic was something that was brought up by Antoine Neveu at one of our previous office hours. We've talked about this a few times, but basically there are gaps in the plugin developer documentation. There are pages that are work in progress pages. There are pages that maybe have outdated information compared to what they should have right now. The big caveat for this is we need someone with that knowledge to be able to contribute that documentation. So anyone with the insights to Ant or other build tools, Puppet, etc., if they want to submit that documentation, that's fantastic. But we do need people with that knowledge to be the ones contributing. Eventually, I'm going to work more closely with Antoine and hopefully get an idea of what he wants or what he has in mind when it comes to updating that documentation, what it will look like, what kind of experience he wants a user to have when they go to that documentation. Expanded tutorials would be a great place to start. We've got the Improve a Plugin tutorial, which shows how to take over for a plugin that's been abandoned, put up for adoption, not abandoned. Those are two different things. And then, but maintaining a plugin and would take it a step further where you're regularly maintaining it, not just improving a plugin and adopting it to get it up to speed. What happens after that, the expanse of that. So lots of different ways this could be addressed and improved. Time will tell what that looks like, but hopefully Antoine can provide some insight as to what that might look like when we get to work more closely. And then the last topic I had was the blue ocean deprecation. So again, this is something we've been talking about for a while now. The idea is that blue ocean is not actively maintained. It's available. It still works at the moment, but eventually it's going to be deprecated and kind of removed from the project, and its functionalities have alternatives. Stuff like pipeline graph view, pipeline stage view are available as standalone functions that you can incorporate into your controller, your deployment, whatever you want to think of it as. So we've been doing a little work to signify that. The status note now explains a bit further that this is not actively maintained. The tutorials have been moved down towards the bottom of the tutorials page, so that kind of an out of sight, out of mind sort of thing. But it is going to be happening sooner at some point in the future. This isn't a pipe dream. This is something that will take place. The Olivier Lame, who's the maintainer of it, is just there's no plans to actively maintain it, so we don't want to keep pulling it along where it's not going to be a good representation of pipeline development ultimately. So there's lots to come there. There is some work being done on determining what sort of blue ocean functions are still usable and what kind of things people find near and dear to their heart. So there may be more alternatives for some of the functionalities in the future as they come along. But for right now, yeah, there is no plan to revive it in any sense of that. So, Mark, did you have anything else you wanted to add on the blue ocean stuff? I know you'd asked about it.
No, I do need to have a conversation with Olivier in terms of the bug reports on the Jenkins Jira, because I think many of them we may just want to close as, hey, we're not going to do this. It's another way of sending the message to people that this is not going to receive anything other than critical security fixes. That's all, right? It's major enhancements won't happen. Critical bug fixes might, but we're not aware of any of those. So yeah.
Right. And it's a long time coming. This is not something new or shocking for anyone. The status notes have been in place for well over a year plus now. So this has been discussed previously. It will continue to be discussed. And again, something that we'll present more information on when we have it. We'll keep the community updated when we can provide that update. And the documentation will reflect that once we have everything ready to go, ready to be in place. And yeah, more to come.
Mm-hmm.
So that brings us to the end of the agenda. Is there any topic that we didn't cover that anyone wants to talk about, discuss, put on the agenda right now? Or anything, any comments, concerns, questions about anything we shared today?
Oh, maybe we should currently we have for the GSOC actual applications, we have more than 50.
More than Tarkus?
50.
More than
We have
50, yeah.
Yeah. Not the drafts. So the draft proposals we have 70 odd, like 70 something.
Oh, we've already got 50 through the portal.
Yep.
Oh, wow.
Okay, good.
More than 50. I think it's 54.
Wow.
Okay, so the Google, because the Google portal closes April 8th, right? That's the date they have to have their, so those who are responding to your feedback still have time to get it in before April 8th, but April 8th Google portal closes and then they're locked out.
Yeah. There won't be any late submissions accepted
Right.
by Google. Yeah.
Great. Thanks very much, Chris. I appreciate that. That was a data set that I did not have. So thanks for sharing that and pointing that out. It's fantastic. So much activity, so much enthusiasm and interest in the project. And yeah, it's just great to see. Lots of people are interested in the topics that we have available this year. So it's pretty cool to just see that number kind of continually grow. So then, if there's nothing else, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording in just a moment. Recording will be available in 24, 48 hours, posted on community.jenkins.io as well. And until next time, take care, stay safe, and thanks for joining and being interested in documentation as always. Bye.
Thank you.